Welcome to this skills module. I'd like to start off on just reminding you of why skills are so necessary. It really is important to understand them in the context of addiction. So if we look at a restorative process, and if you have gone through the How Addiction Works module, you'll recognize this flowchart here where you see the incident and you see manage on the left and you see do nothing on the right, and you see this psychological relief or displacement or addiction, compulsion at the bottom. And if we're going to try and attempt to stop incidents from leading us directly to psychological relief or addiction or compulsion, we need to strengthen that blue manage. We need to strengthen the way we manage. But we also need to strengthen why incidents provoke us so much. And if you watch the unconscious and the defenses video, you will see that in the libraries of our unconscious, there are reasons why when we are faced with certain situations, we are so activated and behave in such certain ways that seem to hijack us. Why one person saying a simple sentence to us, if we were one person, would mean nothing, and if I had a different kind of history, would mean something completely different. Why do the things people say activate me in such a way? Why do they change my behavior? So when we look at skills, the first thing to consider is looking at why people's or interactions or incidents have certain effects upon me. And to do that, one would consider doing trauma work. What we mean by that is that in a counseling space or in trauma-specific therapy, one goes back into that library of the history we have in childhood and adolescence and maybe early adulthood, and we find those moments that have been so indelibly written into our books, in our library, that we are constantly reaching for in the unconscious. Whenever we have an incident that reminds us of that, or that is vaguely like that, the unconscious goes and grabs that book because of how indelible and how terrifying that memory was, or how traumatic it was, or how unresolved it was. And so what we need to do in trauma work is we need to resolve those memories, not to take away any of the sense of loss, but to maybe process the loss, process the pain, process the trauma in a way that is healthy, so it doesn't hijack us. So trauma work is very important to limiting the amount of activation we have in certain relationships and certain conversations and certain incidents. Then there's just obviously just counseling as well, which would be just general counseling around, maybe relationships with our parents, relationships with our significant others, our siblings. All of these things in growing up, in early adolescence, in early relationships, affect greatly how we respond to incidents. And then psychotherapy, which is obviously the deeper version of that, more long-term, where we really get to the nuts and bolts of who we are as a human being and start integrating that process. But today I'd like to focus on something a bit different. So today I'd like to look at the blue word there, which is manage. In many ways, if we are activated, there are things we can do. If there are difficult conversations I need to have with my spouse, I need to have a way where I can try and get that message across that is different to before, where I don't feel compelled to simply go and find psychological relief because of the hopelessness that I feel. And to do that, there are a few things we can do. And today we're going to focus on one of them. The first one, which is communication skills. How do I actually convey this energy that I'm feeling, this message that I want to convey to this partner? How can I do it in a way that I feel safe and I feel heard and I feel like my message is complete? There are other things one can do, such as coaching, life coaching and normal coaching. There is psychoeducation, which is many ways this course that you are doing is heavily psychoeducation based. Supportive environment, that's a treatment center, for example. If you go to a treatment center, you can also learn to manage, because one will have situations while at the treatment center that one can work with and then find out ways to better manage in the future, both inside the treatment center and when one leaves, how that may work in future. So let's look at what Dr. Lance Doty says about addiction. And he says that when actions are taken directly to deal with helplessness, there is no addiction. So this is really important. This is really important because what he's saying is that when you have those moments, when you're in a situation and there's an incident and you feel helpless around something and powerless, the way to regain personal power and authority and autonomy over your thoughts and feelings, not so much your feelings but your thoughts, is to take action directly to the target. So let's look at the flowchart, which you might be familiar with. There is an incident. there is do nothing, there's psychological relief or addiction in many ways, and then there is manage. So today we're going to focus on manage, and I'm going to try and give you a few tools to help you do that. So let's think of a scenario. Let's say a few scenarios, and you'll see this if you watch the module on how addiction works. Is that when I have to say something to someone and my superego or my critical voice is prohibiting me from doing it, but I really need to say it in important matters. Say, for example, I need to let my boss know that I can't tolerate the working hours and I need to leave earlier, or they're starting to really upset me or hurt me physically or my mental health. Or I need to go to my partner and tell them that our sex life has dwindled and I'm very concerned about it. But I'm so worried about them abandoning me, that's a conversation I just really would rather not have because it frightens me so much. So let's take those two examples and work them through with manage. So the thing about managing is it's about communication. And in a situation with my boss, a very good example would be I should in some ways let my boss know that I am unhappy at work and that it is hurting my health. But I need to do it in a way, of course, that gets the message across clearly. So the first thing to do is to communicate the emotions. That is so important because if you watch the unconscious and the defenses video, you'd know that the limbic system, the corticolimbic system, kind of processes feelings first, and then we send those messages up through the brain to the more executive function. So we're going to feel feelings first. And the reason why you need to talk to your boss or to your wife is because of a feeling. I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling anxious, or I'm feeling irritated, or I'm feeling frustrated, or I'm feeling stuck. It's the feeling that guides us. That's why we think about it first. So we always need to know about the emotion first. It's kind of what is the warning bell anyway. Then we need to communicate our needs. Now this is very important. So we need to do it in a way that doesn't make it about the other person. It's not about their needs, it's about my needs. The whole reason why I would displace and choose a safe target as an addiction is because I haven't been able to feel that I can communicate my needs properly to my partner or my spouse or my boss, whoever it might be. So in the case of the boss, of course, the needs are, I need to let you know that I am suffering under the workload. I need to let you know that my mental health is being compromised. I need to let you know that this is slowly killing me. And then finally, the golden thread that ties it all together is one needs to provide and retain a boundary in communication. So then the emotion goes out, it's followed by the need, and then finally it's wrapped up in a boundary. And the reason for a boundary is I need to either invite the other person to start this conversation with me, or I need to draw a hard line in the sand. What some social psychologists call the bright line. It's a very definitive line where I need the other person to know that we're going to work in this space and no further. And most importantly, when one does this, one needs to remain congruent, which is a term we use in psychology to say that obviously all three of these things we do need to be the same. The emotion that I'm feeling, I need to show it. I need to show it physically. I can't say to someone, well, I'm really upset with you. Because that doesn't look like that, does it? Or, yeah, I'm really livid with you. I'm so angry right now, I could, tear your head off. That is not congruent. The emotion that I'm speaking of and my physical body language is not the same. So if you're angry, you're allowed to go, you know what, I'm actually really angry. Or if you're sad, be congruent. Go like, this really hurts me. I'm really sad about this. And then of course with the boundaries, the congruency there is sticking to them. I can't say that there's a boundary and then, 5 minutes later let the person walk right through it. And so I'll give you an example of how we can use this. So here's the way we can take action. So let's take the two examples. The first example of the boss, where the workload is killing me, but I felt self-inhibited to go speak to them because I'm worried. My superego says, you're unemployable, so if you lose this job, you're not going anywhere else. What about all your bills? You're so screwed, you can't do this, you have no right to, you don't work hard enough anyway. The superego is very subtle, but I do have this need to tell them because it's blossoming up within me. So I can go to my boss and say to them, I am feeling, and then describe the feeling you're feeling. And if you're not sure what feeling it actually is, just try the word anxiety or anxious. I'm feeling anxiety around this. I'm feeling anxious to even speak to you. If you say that first, you're doing two things. The first thing you're doing is you're honoring the limbic system, which has felt the feeling first. So in some ways, I'm discharging that energy because I'm telling the person that I feel a certain way. The second thing one is doing is you're letting the other person know your full message. What I mean by that is I've told them up front that this is anxiety provoking for me. It also means they can't argue with you, because I can argue about facts and data and timelines, but I cannot argue about an emotion. An emotion comes up, so if I say I'm really angry about this, they can't say, you're not angry. If I say, I'm heartbroken by that, they can't say, you're not heartbroken. It's not something you can debate. It's a clear line of communication. So with the boss, for example, I am feeling anxious to have this conversation with you. It fills me with anxiety and I am scared. You can say that, first of all, because it's honest, it's authentic, it's what the cortical limbic system is feeling in your body. And secondly, now they know. You then continue with, I need, and this is the need that isn't being fulfilled. So in the case with my boss, I need to let you know that the work hours are crushing me and I'm really struggling. I'm not coping with this workload. And then finally, one can set a boundary at the end. And this is really important. It's important in everything, but in business, I suppose, too. Please, can we talk about reducing my hours? Or please, can we talk about what we can do together to solve this problem? You see, that's a boundary, even though it sounds more like a negotiation, but it is allowing the other person to come in and have a conversation around it. So think about how that sounds to someone. When I've come to them, what they're hearing is, this person is full of anxiety, they're scared to even speak to me, they need to let me know that they are feeling crushed under the workload and it's really, really hurting them quite badly, and can we have a conversation about it? You better believe my reaction, unless I'm a deeply psychopathic human being, I'm going to respond and go, oh wow, I didn't realize it was doing this to you, and you've told me what it is that's doing, what it's doing to you. Let's talk about it. Let's take the example now of a spouse. I need to have a very difficult conversation around our sex life. Maybe the sex life has dwindled and it's making me feel anxious and it's making me feel frustrated, and I've kind of tried to talk about it before, but maybe I haven't done it very well. I go to my spouse and I say to them, or my partner or my lover, whoever it might be, I am feeling, again, anxious works quite well if you can't think of the other emotions to say. I'm feeling anxious to even have this conversation with you. I'm feeling scared. I'm feeling frustrated. And then try and find the feelings around the need. So with this sex life, for example, I'm feeling frustrated. I'm feeling lost, I'm feeling a bit alone. Flesh out that language if you can, but start with anxious if you need to. I need to let you know that the lack of sex in our relationship is really starting to upset me. It's starting to affect me, and I'm starting to have crazy thoughts. And then I can put up a boundary. Please, can we talk about this? Please, can we make a plan? What do you think? And what I've done there is I've given the clear communication over. It takes huge bravery and courage to do this, I understand, because we are dealing with perhaps a lot of superego messages about what you can and can't do as a human being, what conversations you are and aren't allowed to have based on family of origin, what society tells us, what our parents told us. But this formula is really freeing, and I invite you to start using it on the small stuff. Start practicing it on the small stuff and work up big to the bigger stuff that might be, kind of crippling you and causing you to have addictive compulsions. If trying to ask the boss to get extra leave is really gnawing on you, try write the sentence out. Try go, I'm feeling anxious and not I don't feel it's fair. I don't feel like I'm doing the right thing, but I need to let you know that the time off is really important to me and it's important to my family. Can we chat about that? What do you think about that? Sometimes the boundaries need to be really, really hard. And this is obviously for cases that, are extreme, I suppose, in nature. But let's say I've been treated very poorly by my boss and I have to have a conversation with them around work hours. Perhaps they've been making me work overtime for months. Then I need to go with a sentence that's a bit more concretized. So I might then go to my boss and saying, I'm feeling angry and tense to even have this conversation with you, but I need to let you know that I will not work overtime anymore. Please respect that. And you see there the boundary is absolute. The boundary can be even more finite. It can be, please know that I won't work overtime ever again. And you can see how you can start modifying the sentence now to start getting the needs out and the emotion out that you need to. And this is not about the other. This is not about a judgment. In none of those times have I ever said to the other person, it's a judgment, they've done something wrong, they're the idiot, I'm the victim. That hasn't happened. All I've simply said to try and manage my own anxiety around it is to tell them how I'm feeling, tell them what need is going unfulfilled, and then to set up a boundary. Please know that I'll never do that again, or please know that that's not for me, or please can we chat about this. And I think what's important when one practices skills to embrace imperfection, because one wants to get it right, but just start with emotional language. I highly encourage you just to start with, I'm feeling, I need to let you know, what do you think about that? I'm feeling XYZ, I need to let you know, ABC, what do you think about that? Start that language, because in starting that language we'll build up courage and we'll build up a certain kind of reserve to have for the bigger ones as well. And know that you are probably going to get it wrong a lot of the time, but overall this way of communicating is much more effective, because you're combining how you're feeling with what you need and the boundary all in the message. There is nothing left for the other person to have to decode. They have the entire message. And as long as there's no judgment, and as long as one's been honest with their feelings and congruent in the message, keeping everything along the same lines, and not being passive aggressive, doing it, if I feel angry, show that you're angry. If you feel hurt, show that you're hurt, but do it in a way that is gentle as well. The most effective way to talk to someone is gently, and embrace the imperfection that it won't always go well. So I'd just like to end off with that Lance Doty's quote, because he says the antidote to addiction is very, very simple. I mean, he didn't call it the antidote, but I think I will. When actions are taken directly, I'm feeling, I need, what do you think about that? When you take those actions directly and you do those things and you're able to go to the target of the dissatisfaction or the hopelessness or powerlessness, and you're able to speak to that person, there is no addiction.